Hello, welcome back. Missed you.
I know. I know. It's been a bleak 2 weeks without this podcast
It's
in
been
my
sad.
life.
Hopefully everyone has survived.
Yeah, and it was a crazy 2 weeks. I think it was good actually to step away
Yeah.
in terms of what's going on in the greater landscape and just take a breath. But it's
Yeah.
good to be back.
So we both traveled to opposite ends of the country. We're back.
Yes.
Okay, so we are going to tackle today the topic that came in second place in the poll that we did when we were asking folks what topics they wanted us to cover. And this topic is engagement rates, dot, dot, dot. Do we care?
Mm, it's almost like too juicy. Engagement rate for us, we shorthand it ER, which makes me laugh because it's like emergency room, the panic about
And
engagement rates.
I always quote my friend because I came from PR, and I always quote my friend Erin Shea. I remember we were at work at Edelman and someone was flipping out about something or other, and someone else was crying, and all the drama that you have at one of these
Really?
large agencies. And she came into my office and she like flopped down on my couch at a couch there, and she said, it's PR, not ER.
Right.
I
Right.
agree.
Recenter ourselves. So,
Yeah.
yes, so we need to be
So here.
centered to have this conversation. Do we care?
So I don't. I think it's
Wait, that is not where I expected you to start. You're just flat out, you don't care. Or do you
here's
care
why
by
I don't
proxy? Okay, yeah.
here's okay, I get why I should care. I get why my clients think they care. I get why influencers think they care. Here's the deal. Looking at someone's engagement rate for their organic content, especially, I think you almost have to separate Instagram and TikTok because TikTok is not as much of an issue in this case as Instagram is. But if you look at Instagram rates, if you look at engagement rates on Instagram over the last couple of years, they've absolutely tanked. Creator IQ, who's the software partner that we use, they track these year over year. And I will grab this to post up on my LinkedIn as just like an accompanying fact for this to show like how they've fallen for the different levels over the years. I'll pull up some of their old ones, but they've just completely tanked. So that's one thing. Engagement rates are an issue across the board on Instagram. They're super low. They're not what they used to be.
Okay. But I would argue then if they've stabilized and that's the new normal and the new basement or whatever, is there a place, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but is there a place to use them? Like, why would you have liked them if they were higher? Or would you still be like, no, they don't
I
matter?
guess my issue, like that's just the start of my issue. So one, they're way lower than they used to be, but clients kind of haven't, no matter how much we educate and send over the studies and talk about it, I think we get a lot of clients, and the most egregious ones in this case are the PR agencies who are maybe not as up on, like, not as in the weeds in influencer marketing as we are, and so they come to us with like the 2018 engagement rates
Hmm.
as a requirement, and those just don't make any sense anymore. So
Throw
that's
that at
one.
me. What is the 2018
We'll get
request?
people saying like everyone needs to have, looking at micro influencers or even macros, and everyone needs to be 6% or above. I had a client come to us. This was not a PR agency. It was a client in China, and she wanted everyone to be over 10% engagement
Wow.
rate. So sometimes
Okay.
like it's just crazy and not a thing.
And then the more audience a person has, the lower the engagement rate is just naturally going to be. I feel like it's sort of this function of if you get millions and millions, it's harder to, I think that
Keep that
engagement rate
up.
we see, yeah, it
Yeah.
falls.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other issue too is that it's a moving target. So I see this even on LinkedIn. Like I track my impressions and my engagement rate on my personal LinkedIn because I
Mhm.
like give me something to make a chart about and a graph.
I didn't know this about you.
Give me the
Okay.
opportunity to make a graph and I will make a graph. So I have a graph that's a complicated graph because I'm tracking two things at once. So it's like one of those double ones. So I have the bars, the lines, bars, columns
Yes.
for my impressions. And then I have a squiggly line tracking the engagement rate,
Okay.
and
All
it's
right.
all over the place. And what I've learned on LinkedIn is you need one viral post per month, and it like looks like you're killing it and you're the most popular person on LinkedIn. And then you have a month, like in our case, September, where I didn't have anything
Hit.
even like slightly hit on LinkedIn. And it looked like everyone decided they hated me and I should just quit my day job.
Right. Wrap it up.
So, and the engagement rates fluctuate the same way. They're up and down and up and down. I mean, engagement rates, basically what you're looking at is percentage of engagements per followers over a certain period of time. It's, you look at it on a Tuesday and then another 4 posts go up, and you look at it on the next Friday and it could be totally different because you put up more content and some have hit and some haven't hit.
Right.
There might be some pieces of content that have paid being put behind them, which we should earmark the paid piece because it's my other big
I was
issue.
just going to say organic versus a sponsored piece,
Right.
totally different.
So, like, it's a moving target. So I just have an issue with requiring a certain metric that is not a static metric.
Mm,
Because if you look at the metric on a Tuesday and it looks okay, and then you look at it on a Thursday and it doesn't look okay, like if it just dips below that threshold that you have, like to me, that's not, it loses some of its meaning.
mm, right.
I also think like we also have kind of internal conversations over how do you calculate the engagement rate. And I think different people calculate it in different ways. Like
Yes.
engagements based on who saw the content or engagements based on the follower. Is it like engagements over followers or engagement over views? I think engagements over views makes a lot more sense, and that's what we've been showing
Mm-hmm.
more.
Mm-hmm.
There's just there's so much inconsistency. I just have an issue with it. And ultimately, my perspective is at the end of the day, if you're creating a piece of sponsored content and that person does have a good relationship with their audience and they get comments that aren't just like comment farm emojis, and there is some kind of relationship and the content looks great and is, the caption's written well and it's doing what it's supposed to do, we're going to put paid behind it. We can, if we need to get more engagement on it, we can get it there. We
We'll
can
fix
all
it in
make,
post.
we
We'll
can
fix it in
make,
post.
can make it all happen. So like, what is the point of this? Of looking at their engagement rate as a creator?
Okay, so but dive into that with me because what is the point of it? You know, I have enough good faith in the brands that I work with, brand clients, and the agencies that we work with to not just write them off as, oh, they're trying to waste my time or your time. They're asking for it for a reason. Have you thought about that? Like, I know you've thought about that, but like, what's the psychology behind it? Are they having to report to somebody who doesn't, like you said, the PR people might not be as in the weeds, but then if they're reporting to their clients or their higher ups who are really farther removed, is that the thing of just like, just give me numbers that make,
Yeah,
back to vanity metrics?
I think a lot of it is a communication issue, and that's always a struggle in working through another agency, is that it sometimes becomes a game of telephone. And with some of our agencies, they do let us, we're brought in as their partner up front and we're able to talk to the client and we can educate on this stuff and we can kind of explain why we're making the choices or the recommendations that we're making.
Mm-hmm.
When it's this crazy game of telephone where the client comes to the agency and then the agency comes to us and then we try to explain what we think that they should do and why, and then they have to go and explain it to their client without having really understood maybe what we were saying. It's very hard to move the needle there, and then it does just feel like this meaningless metric that they don't even know why they're asking for it.
So that brings up for me, my business brain is always cycling around these things because you just laid out how agencies like ours, specialist agencies, boutique firms, how best to work with us, how best to hire us. And white labeling is not always the best way to go. We understand why it happens, but you're going to lose a lot literally in translation.
And we're grateful for, like, we do quite a bit of white labeling. I would never want to give up the business. That does not mean I don't have some frustrations with how it ends up going down.
Right. And there's a reason that they're reaching out to the specialist because those conversations are nuanced. And while it's top of mind, the other thing is all the different channels calculate all of that differently too. So
Yes.
it's, you know, if you're running one program, but you've got influencers on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and other places, then trying to wrangle a meaningful engagement rate metric or formula can be really complicated.
You wanna muddy it even further? We've had
Yes, I do.
situation let's just really fuck it up here. You can we like I said, we use CIQ these days. They have their own formula and way that they generate the engagement rate. That's what we use, so that's what we provide. We've had situations where we provide that number, and then we have an agency client come back to us and they say, "Well, we ran this through our tool. We ran these influencers through our tool that we're using, whether it's Grin or Tagger, which is
Tagger.
now Sprout or
Yeah.
whatever it is, and we got a totally different number."
Yep.
Like, how
Yep.
do you navigate that?
Right. But my piece of paper said this. And yeah, this that's an interesting point because that sort of touches on I think one of the problems with all of those platforms and software as a service and solutions is that at the end of the day, you can't go back and say, but Creator IQ said so. Like, who wants to use that with their client who's pushing back on them? Like, but they said, you have to actually have an articulate
Yeah, I mean,
response.
we can give the formula. We can show that it's also with Creator IQ, like I said, because engagement rates change by the day. We can have shown, like, here's what it was on Monday. Here's what it was on Thursday. Like, it just
Right.
changes. This is the formula that they use. It's a whole other conversation to talk about, like, having to work against a mystery platform that you don't actually have access to because I can't explain why your tool works differently because it's not the one that I use.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Oh, that's frustrating.
I can't use my tool to recruit and vet influencers that are gonna have different numbers in your tool because I don't like, I'd have to be a superhero. I don't have access to it.
Wait, say that last part again, meaning
Like,
if
if they need the people that we recruit for their program to have certain numbers in their system that I don't have access to,
right.
there's no way for me to do that.
Right, right, right. You don't even know if those influencers are in that system or again, what the algorithms are that they're using. So it
Right, or are they
becomes
scraping the data or pulling it from the API, and then what calculation are they using?
right. Yes. This is interesting because I was anticipating this conversation to be a little bit more about what does engagement rate really tell you at the end of the day?
Interesting.
And you did touch on that because you said if the content is aligned and they're sort of hitting their marks and the audience is engaged and not giving bullshit comments, but you're also bringing in just so many of the industry challenges, like as this industry grows and as more platforms and solution providers show up like mushrooms sprouting on the forest floor, where's the standardization and does engagement rate, is it delivering a death knell to the engagement rate as a metric?
Well, and how does with all of these platforms prolif this is like too much of an alliteration. With the proliferation of all of the platforms, influencers, not all influencers, there are certain influencers who are gaming the system to artificially inflate their engagement rate. So we were working with a startup platform, just helping them out on a consulting basis to try to help them build a platform that would actually be helpful in like the performance marketing space. And they were using some tool and generating lists of influencers, and they were looking for a certain high engagement rate. And so they would send us lists of influencers that they had found, and we would go in and like vet them like with human
Eyes on.
eyeballs and brains. And most of them had comment pod comments. And that's why the engagement rates were so, it was just emoji, emoji, emoji. There weren't real comments. It wasn't real people commenting, or it was people just going in and saying one thing because they, promised that they're part of some agreement where they're going to comment, one time on every post from everyone who's in that pod.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yum. So I don't like that. To your point, then what does it mean? Because if that's how certain creators, it can't be the be all end all metric because
Right.
it's too easily gamed.
Yeah. And that's a great way, not that we need to tie up this conversation, but to put a really good bow on it, which is it's one variable of many that go into what the ideal influencer avatar looks like. Because we've certainly, in a program we're running right now, we've seen engagement rates off the charts, and the influencer in question, everything else looks good, and then they have salty language. They have, and this particular client, that's not their vibe. They can't go with that. Engagement rate will not tell you that. So it's just one metric. It's just one.
I think, don't you also think that because we've been doing this for so long and we know what works, we can help ensure that the sponsored content has a great engagement? Like, we just were finishing up a program and it was for a food product, and it was like a holiday based program, and so there were a lot of baking recipes, and the content performed like it completely blew away all of our benchmarks and guarantees and estimates, because it was like fall and people wanted cozy, and it was like just yummy comfort food. And because it was holiday, there were like plaid fabrics in the background, and it just, everything felt so warm and good. And it was like, there's there's a certain skill in figuring out what kind of sponsored content is going to resonate with people.
I mean, first of all, thank you. I think that that was a compliment to me and to you about our
Yeah,
longevity and expertise, and I would love to ride that compliment. My concern around that is so much is out of our control when content hits. I remember working with product that is an immune support product, and we'd been in the works for 6 months developing the campaign, maybe not 6 months, but quite a while. And it was supposed to go live in May of 2020. And in March of 2020, we're like, either this timing is incredible for an immune support product, or this timing is going to kill this program. And we ran it like we as planned, and it really did well. And of course, searches at that time for immune support, immune boosting were like through the roof. So some of that is hard to, there's
sure.
no crystal ball around that.
Yeah.
And P.S., I'm outside of Philadelphia, and for the last 2 weeks, it's finally cold and rainy. It was 80 degrees 2 weeks ago, right? So cozy, I was not thinking about cozy fall recipes or holiday. I would have been like, soup, can't, like, who can do soup right now? So that stuff also, like the trends and the seasons, and we think we set it up to the best of our abilities. And then to your point, I do think as experts who have been around for a long time, it's more, I think, about seeing the holistic picture of an influencer and what they bring to the table, and being able to integrate the snapshot of all the different soft and hard metrics that come into that. That's part of the art and craft of influencer marketing. So yes, I do think our expertise lends to that. I'm just worried about saying that we can always know what's going to overperform, because sometimes it's Mother
Yeah, I don't
Nature.
think, I mean, if I could always know, I'd be probably not sitting here right now. No offense.
I get it. I get
But
it.
I think we can I think we can do a good job of guiding things to be as successful as they possibly can be within the limits of where we have control.
To shape it.
Yeah.
And it's not just engagement rate, engagement rate.
Well, and even if you look at engagement, there's so many elements that fall under engagement. So it's like shares, saves, likes, shares, saves, comments, replies, clicks
Wow.
are
That
all
was
the things that,
impressive.
yeah, thank you. I've done it a few times. So those are all the things that we include as engagements, but
Hmm.
they all have different value. So, like getting to the food campaign, because it's top of mind, we just had that wrap up call with the client. To us, the most meaningful engagements for that content were saves and shares, because a save indicates that someone's going to come back to that recipe, they want to make it, and the share indicates that they were showing it to someone because they were so impressed with it or thought someone else would like it. Like, to me, I love a like, I love a comment. The clicks are kind of, I don't know how important a click is for a product that you're buying at a grocery store. I mean, they were clicking to the store locator, so that's probably the next most important. Likes and comments, like, I don't know, those are not as valuable, but it all gets bundled up into this engagement, right? I just think we can be a lot more
Yeah.
surgical about it.
Yes. And that's campaign by campaign,
Right,
right?
because
So
that's a food campaign.
that's a food campaign. Whereas I'm thinking when we did the immune support or a similar wellness product, comments were actually really critical to the success of the campaign because they showed us things about the consumer that we didn't have eyes on
But it
until
wasn't important to you necessarily how many comments. You were probably looking at the content of the
right,
comment. Like, for ours,
right,
this is kind of a unique product. So for us, we were like looking for comments that said, "Wow, I didn't know you could use it for that," or "Wow, I didn't know this existed. I'm excited to try it." It didn't
right.
matter that there were 100 total. It mattered that there were quite a few that, like, showcased that they were learning something new, that they had a intent to
Yeah.
purchase.
Yeah. So I love that we're digging into this because we're almost making the opposite point now that engagement rate matters because we need all of the information that engagement rate represents. The likes, comments, shares, saves, clicks, copies. I don't remember that whole list. Because, yeah. And when we report on our campaigns, we have a proprietary consumer or buyer, but consumer sentiment benchmarking, where we will take that sentiment and extrapolate that data into where are they in the awareness, activation, loyalty, advocacy. So yes, and I mean, I'm about to like start geeking out on what we've seen in the comments and how to me, when I pitch influencer marketing or I talk about the power of it, the strength of it, it's 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 that
Yeah.
consumer data that comes back that is frankly, I think often mind-blowing. And that's why I don't like engagement rate as a proxy for whether somebody or a program is going to be successful or an influencer is going to be successful because every piece of content that you put out that gets anything, when you read the tea leaves, you can find value in that. Doesn't mean you like what you're seeing, but it's good information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've been doing more and more. We've had a lot more interest lately in doing brand lift studies
Mm, that sounds
attached to our
terrible,
programs.
boring. No, I'm just kidding.
We don't do it ourselves. We outsource it.
There you go.
We
Okay.
outsource it.
Yeah.
Um, and it's cool. It's cool because they show this survey to people who've seen the content and then to followers who have not seen the
Yes.
content. And you can ask, you can say, what was the goal of this campaign? What were we trying to accomplish? And you can test whether that content actually did accomplish it
Whether
or
the
not.
messaging translated. And I was totally kidding about it sounding boring because the data research like collection sounds boring, but I'm with you. I think more brands should be doing that. I think it should be married to your influencer campaign, at least one per year, so that there's the kind of data I think that will win you budget and buy-in going forward,
Yeah.
is to say, here's the impact that we had. It is another investment, but how about it's an investment in understanding where the first investment just went?
Right.
And
Right.
knowing that better.
And to help and get, like, a lot of our clients love it because it helps them get more budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they can be like, look.
Right. This is what we're doing. So that ties in a little bit to our last episode about performance versus awareness. I think that is the antidote or the companion metric information to performance, which is conversion and sales. I think that brand lift study needs to start to become table stakes for talking about awareness marketing,
Yeah.
branding.
I think hopefully I don't anticipate this happening. It would be great if it was more affordable, because a lot of our clients just can't afford to do it. It's a
Right.
significant investment. But
Agreed.
we had a client do one a couple of years ago. They had I don't remember if it was actually Good Housekeeping seal, but the equivalent of like a Good Housekeeping seal of approval on their packaging. And so they used the brand lift study to help them to understand if that seal, which was very expensive to
Mhm.
have and include on their packaging, if that seal if it was moving the needle for them. And they learned that it wasn't. So they were able to make a decision to not invest in that moving forward because it didn't impact their consumers.
Yeah. So the brand lift study people, hear me out, find the case study around that, spend X on the brand lift study, save X on the good housekeeping seal
Right.
or whatever it is. Net, if you come out ahead, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. And I think there's a little bit of responsibility on either our side, the brand side, maybe the industry side, to figure out once and for all some attribution models or some financial models around what does an impression, what is it worth? And I think the problem is it goes from brand to brand to brand. If you've got a direct to consumer product, you can track that. If you're a B2B organization, what and again, I feel like I'm repeating myself from the last time, like what's the lifetime value of a customer or a client?
Right.
Most of the organizations out there running influencer aren't maybe marrying those metrics, from their sales side of things to the marketing side. But my original point was I would love to see some baseline formulas around how to make it a financial equation when you get X number of impressions, X amount of reach, X number of engagements. And there is some data out there for the CPG space, but again, it doesn't help with everything else.
Well, I feel like we'll need to have some more conversations about data because it's juicy.
Okay, Miss Pie Chart. I'll go there if you make me.
So next week, we record this a few days before it comes out. So next week is Thanksgiving. So we will probably skip the next week. So sorry for in and out
Yeah.
in November, but we will be back the following week. And I think we should tackle the topic that kind of blew up on your LinkedIn this week, which is influencers ghosting brands. Is this a
After
is
being
this a thing for
contracted.
is this a thing for everyone? Is this actually a problem?
Right. I just as a teaser, I'll put this out there and we can talk about it. I am planning to run a survey on LinkedIn, a poll. Has it happened to you, your brand or your agency? Has it not happened regularly? Or have you just heard about it? I'm feeling like it's an urban legend, other than we just saw that post that I
Yeah.
referenced in my post. But I do think it's like, well, you see this a lot. Like somebody you see this happening. I've heard of this, and I don't know who's really having that happen to them. So I'll be curious to dig into that with you.
Yeah, we'll have fun. Okay.
Cool.
See you
All right.
next
Great to
time.
see you. Bye.